Welcome to RECON, guys. I think it's Wednesday, but it's not. I think it's only Tuesday. However, we're getting there, and we have basically a session for you today. And we're going to continue with the AI buyer agent interview. And so what we did is we asked AI, hey, prepare a buyer for an interview. What questions would you suggest they ask? And so we've got everything from soup to nuts, and we've got the top 5 questions we're covering this week. So I'm going to share with you what we're going to be talking about today. This is the second question in a 5-part series. And it's going to be at a subject we talk about every now and then, but I think a lot of agents are kind of like stutter a little bit and stammer, maybe get lockjaw. And the question from the buyer during the interview process is, how are you compensated? And could I be responsible for any part of your fee? I'll leave the slide up behind me. I trust you'll be able to read that. Louise will put it in the chat. We've got coaches commenting in the chat. You also can too. There's a lot of learning going on over there. Welcome everybody by Facebook. Welcome everybody watching via my Master YouTube channel. We're going to teach you something, and I'm going to give a plug right now, is that on Friday, which will be our master call for 1 hour, 9:30 to 10:30, we're going to be working on this in depth. Fair enough? So Louise, did anybody come out to play today?
Oh my gosh, we
Yeah.
have a whole crew coming out to play. Lori and Mike and Ellie jumped at the gate. So we will have Lori with Louise, Mike with Don, Ellie with Kelly. You let us know when you're ready to go, Denny, and we'll hop on.
Oh yeah, we're ready. Rock and roll.
Okay. Okay, hey Lori. Um, I'd like to know, is there I'm sorry. Mike
So
and Don, please,
I'll set
please,
this up for Lori. You
thank
get,
you.
for example, the coaches, you're role playing with Louise. She is at the buyers. You already know she's interviewing other agents. You're at the table having the interview. She's got the questions, and she's going to be asking you questions. This is one of several questions she's asking. Now, I know we typically isolate, what other questions do you have? Well, we can't get into that because this particular buyer may have 10. So what we want to do is pretend like we've gone through all of that stuff, why they're selling, etc., and let's work on the answer. Fair enough, guys? All right,
Thank
Louise,
you.
groovy. Let's go.
Hey, hey, Lori, how are you compensated and could I be responsible for any part of your fee? Lori, I can't hear you.
Laura, you're on mute.
Oh.
Man, I was doing so good too.
Repeat it.
I did the same thing this morning.
So super important question. I'm really glad that you asked that, really common nowadays. Have you spoken with any other buyer's agents prior to speaking with me?
No, we weren't planning to. Should we?
No, wait, whoa, whoa.
No.
You are interviewing. You
I
Okay.
are
am.
interviewing other agents. This is the interview process, and you will be talking to other people.
Oh, she
Yes,
is.
we
Okay.
are interviewing. You're the first of the agents that we will be interviewing.
Okay, great. Um, Uh, okay, how familiar are you with how compensation is paid? I know there's a lot of noise out in the media. So that I'm not repeating myself, how familiar are you with compensation, and how it's paid in the transaction? I just repeated myself, sorry.
That's okay. Well, I haven't bought or sold a home in 20 years, so I think whatever I knew is probably changed.
Well, congratulations. I'm excited to get started for you. My compensation is 3%. Depending on the property, some or all of that could be paid during the transaction. If the seller or the other cooperating brokerage is not offering compensation, then there are some structures that can happen, and I would always keep you informed so that we would know the best steps to protect your best interest.
So 3% is your fee plus the other fees. That's going to be a lot of fees that I pay. Are you willing to renegotiate that?
You will definitely have closing costs. Again, those are some things that we can hopefully negotiate into the contract in our offer and get the seller to accept our offer. Um, God, I've never had anybody ask me yet to negotiate okay.
All right, time. So have you had everyone just say, okay,
I have.
Sorry.
well, let
Yeah,
me ask you, if you
mostly.
had to answer that in one word, Lori, hey, listen, could I possibly, well, I maybe be possible, responsible for some of your fee? If you had one word, what would your answer be?
Possibly.
Oh, good word. Okay, who's next?
Next is my screen is Mike with Don.
Hey, Don, can you hear me?
I can, Mike. Hey, I appreciate you answering those prior questions. So the next one is, how are you compensated, and could I possibly be responsible for any part of that fee?
Sure. That's a very good question. Um, the way that I am compensated, I can tell you, of all the deals I've done over the last 4 years, that I have been compensated by the seller. So, I anticipate that being the case as we move forward.
So I'm
So
going
we
to
don't have
pause
to-
you just for a second. If you had to
Sure.
use one word to answer the question versus moonwalking, what would your word be?
Well, I
Think of
like
diapers.
I like the prior contestant's word of possibly.
All right. So,
I-
all right. So, well, I can think of yes, no, or maybe, or possibly, or a synonym of that. My point in on this is, I think when we start running and trying to hide from the answer, we look guilty.
Mhm.
I'm just suggesting we start with being honest,
So yes.
or possibly.
Yeah.
Depends. Think of male diapers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
understood.
So what I'm suggesting is, I think whatever follows that one word will be stronger if you get it out, because it looks like you're ducking and bobbing away from the question. Anybody else agree with me?
That's a great point. I agree.
All right. So go ahead and use depends, maybe, possibly, then go.
Yeah. So, Don, possibly it depends. But like I said, I mean, of all the deals I've done over the past 4 years, every one of them has been paid by the seller. So the buyer has not had to come out of pocket. What can you open up your concern? What is your concern? Why do you ask that question?
Okay,
Well,
I'm gonna pause you right now. So here's one more point. We'll go on to the next one. So thank you for just taking the coaching. Here's a suggestion. When you say possibly, maybe, it depends, rather than making it a run-on sentence, thinking, oh my gosh, I think they're going to walk out the door. Well, actually, you're at their house, right? Or maybe you're at a coffee shop. Why don't you give it a pause? Because it almost sounds that, you guys can put in the chat if you feel like this or not. If we get too excited about wanting to move on and like, whoa, let me explain that, it's almost like you have to explain it. If you just said, hang on, it depends. And you might want to say, okay, would you like to know more? Or pause a second. Oh, and then you can answer based on the response. Does that make sense, you guys?
Yeah.
It's almost like you're afraid to give them bad news.
Yep, you're right. No, you're right.
All right. It's not bad news. It's not bad news. Next, let's go again. Thanks, Mike.
All right. Ellie and Kelly are next.
Hey, Ellie, thanks so much for answering those questions, but I do have one more. How are you compensated, and could I be responsible for any part of your fee?
That's a very important question, Kelly, and that depends.
Now, didn't that
What does it
sound
depend
good?
on? What does it depend on?
That's a great, okay, can I explain? So before we discuss, the compensation structure, may I ask you a few questions so I can better understand the level of service, the strategies you're expecting, and support from the beginning through the process to closing?
No, we're not going to do that.
No? Okay. Thank you very much. Let me just explain you the
That's
structure
called
then.
running out the clock with babble. No, stay on
Okay.
point.
All right, Kelly, are you looking mainly for access to properties and schedule, or are you expecting full representation?
I'm not sure, but what does that have to do with how you're compensated?
That's because if you want something, you pay, right? The fees are negotiable, first of all. Okay, that's one. Everything is negotiable. So that's my role here to help you negotiate the best terms for you when you find the right home.
All right, pause.
Okay.
Are you saying your fee is negotiable? Ellie,
Fees, I said fees are negotiable.
are you suggesting or implying that your fees are negotiable?
It might be.
Okay. That's just the kind of red flags your negotiation ability. Okay, number 4, let's go.
Okay.
Okay, we're with Jose and Louise. Whitney and Don will be next. Hey, Jose. I'm curious, how are you compensated, and could I be responsible for any part of your fee?
It depends, Louise, and I'll answer your question in just a minute. Can I ask you a question before we dive into the answer?
Sure.
What do you understand about how a buyer's agent is compensated?
Um, I I don't know that it's any different now than it was 10 years ago when I bought.
How was it 10 years ago?
The seller paid for everything.
So, all right, great, Jose. I'm going to pause you. You're going to go back on. So we're building on this. I don't have a partner today. Matt's at the dentist, so I'm building this all by myself, one brick at a time. It depends. You guys, I like that, right? Now, Lori did the same thing, and we did this yesterday too. You find out some sort of starting point. Now, I'm going to ask you is the question is, what is your understanding about the compensation of a buyer's agent? Would be like, what are the mating habits of the llama in Peru? I have no earthly idea. Would a bet what you want to find is a starting point, but that seems like a hard question. Maybe start with another question like, okay, well, I'm going to go back to Ellie. I always tell her, quit saying that's a good question. But everyone else has said this, so I gave her that liberty, and I'm glad you asked that question. Was a better way to say it. Another way to bring this up, like it says, well, I'm glad you asked that because that's something I was going to cover anyway. Boom. Now, so we were going to talk about this anyway. So you want to talk about it now, or you have some other questions? So you might do that in real life. But another question is like, okay, can you really explain the mating habits of llama in Peru? Or what's your understanding of buyer agent compensation based on the NAR MLS settlement in the lower 48? Why don't you just say, well, let me ask you a question. When's the last time you bought a home? How long has it been since you bought a home? That is an easier question. Y'all getting me on this? But the model is right, Jose. You started out great, depends. Now you're going to what's their frame of reference. I'm just giving you feedback on, ask a simpler question. Because most agents can't explain the complexities of a buyer agent compensation in a dual agent state like Florida.
Understood.
So,
I just didn't want to imply that she's had previous home buying experience.
well, you can ask her if she has home buying experience.
I thought I did with the question.
But you talked about buyer agent compensation.
Yeah, since she volunteered that she had some experience. That's just the way I was thinking.
That's different though.
Okay.
I think it's a complex. I mean, you can do whatever you want. I'm just giving you my feedback. So,
No,
all right.
definitely, but great questions.
All right. So keep going.
So, Luis, it's similar. Now, the only, when you bought 10 years ago, who brought the money to the table?
When we bought 10 years ago, we brought money to the table.
Yes. To the seller, correct?
We brought the money to purchase the house. So
Yeah.
yes, I guess you could say it went to the seller.
Yeah, so it hasn't changed much. Now, we do have to go in there with the understanding that three things might happen, right? The seller might be willing to pay 100% of the compensation fee to the buyer's agent. part of it or none of it. But you'll understand way before we make it to the closing table where you stand. Do you understand that part?
As long as I know in advance what's going on.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna pop in here, Louise. So what is my fee? What's my potential exposure, Jose?
My brokerage charges 3% for my representation to you as a buyer.
And so what you're saying is if the seller is not contributing, I have to come out of pocket 3%?
Yes, but not until we make it to the closing table, and we will know way in advance before we make it to the closing table what part, if any, you have to come up with.
Now, let me ask you, some people think I'm not warm and fuzzy in the fuzzball. Was that a difficult, was that a question you might get from a potential buyer?
The warm and fuzzy?
I get called that all the time. All right, great, Jose, great. Jose is very smooth. I love listening to you. Now, how about this? The next one, who's up next?
Whitney and Don are next.
How about another opening? How about a shock opening? When they ask the question, hey, could I be responsible for any part of your fee? You certainly can. In fact, it's always been that way. Boom. Now you've opened up a discussion, haven't you? So, Jose, you said, hey, 10 years ago, who brought money to closing or whatever? You kind of went several chapters ahead. If you slow it down a little bit, well, of course you will. Buyers have always paid the fee. Now you're taking the obvious and taking an offensive position versus a defensive position. Anybody have a question about that? Y'all tracking with me on my logic? Let me ask the question, you guys. Has the buyer always paid the fee? So what's different about it now? It may not be anything.
Nothing.
Nothing. Clarity around it.
So one of the things I'm going to give, because we've got more people here right now, we're going to work on this. We've got then we got a couple other days, Wednesday, Thursday, talk about some other things in the interview. But Friday, I would love to use, if you agree, and you can put it in the chat if you want to do this. What this does, if there's any kind of pushback, it opens the door for you to use what's called a value articulated method. Now you're going to be able to articulate your value. If they don't buy into the fact they've always paid the commission, now I want you to understand and how to articulate what is your value proposition. So if you'd like to cover that in depth on Friday and how you can kind of outline your value proposition in case you get pushback, you might not. Louise doesn't get a lot of pushback. You might not get a lot of pushback. But if you're not, that only lets me believe you're probably not standing at the plate enough. Because if you stand at the plate with the more difficult buyers, you might get more pushback. Does that make sense? So just put it in the chat. If you don't want to do it, we'll find something else. Maybe we'll talk about the mating habits of llama in Peru. Who's up next, Louise?
Isn't it Whitney with Don? Did
Yeah.
we get through that?
Yeah. Whitney, thanks for answering those questions. The prior two agents we met with, we thought we had a handle on this, but we're so confused. How are you compensated, and could I be responsible for any part of your fee?
So that's a great question. I think when you get into any transaction that deals with thousands of dollars, you should always know exactly what you're paying for and what the other party is paying for. Generally, the seller will pay the buyer's compensation, but in the event that they decide that they're not going to, there's a couple different options that you have. You and I can sit down and we can discuss the compensation. I can break down exactly.
Whitney, can I interrupt you? Is that all right?
Yeah, of course.
Janet, it's okay. You are sitting down, number one. You're across from them.
I meant like in the future, like if we put the offer in and then like on another day we would, and they're like, hey, we're not gonna pay the compensation, we would sit down again.
So I'm having this transcribed, but I was reading, I was going, you were saying that the seller is paying the commission. At what point does the seller ever pay the commission, guys? Whitney, all right, so.
I thought that the seller, or at least from the deals that I've seen here, the seller generally pays the buyer's compensation,
Sure. But
unless
where do
I'm
they get the
mistaken.
Hang on. Where do they get the money?
From the money that the buyer is technically paying.
So the buyer brings it in their wheelbarrow and gives it to the seller, and then the seller pays off the closing costs. But where does the money originate?
The money originates from the buyer.
Then who paid it?
Technically, the buyer did.
Now, okay, so the reason I'm having this conversation with you, it doesn't make a difference when you're talking to a buyer that in some transactions the seller pays, right?
Right.
I think it's better, and you don't have to agree, but I just think it's better if you let them know when you go buy a new car. Have you ever bought a new car? Yeah. Well, did you have to write a separate check to the salesman that helped you? No. Well, who paid the salesman? I don't know. I never thought about it. Probably the dealer. Right. But where do they get the money? So in essence, and this is how you walk them along, Jose, you don't take them to the end of the book. In essence, then, who actually paid them? I mean, you brought the money, but the dealer wrote the check. So in actuality, who actually paid them? So if we can structure something like that, and one thing I want you, your fees are negotiable, but if the two major differential advantages between the like a 1.4 million agents and you guys is your ability to understand the market and your ability to negotiate. The only way I would suggest you don't lay the card out there that your fees are negotiable unless you're saying, yes, they are negotiable. We can accept more. All right. Maybe I'm losing you. Maybe you missed Matt. All right, next.
Mark and Kelly.
All right, Mark. Appreciate you answering all those questions for me. So last question for you, but how are you compensated, and could I be responsible for any part of your fee?
Well, Kelly, yes, you certainly can. In fact, it's always been that way.
Explain.
Well, have you ever bought a new car?
I have a couple times.
Okay. And you deal with the salesman at the dealership, correct?
Correct.
And when you buy that car, did you write a check to the salesman?
No, I bought a check to the dealership. Or I wrote a check to the dealership. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And the dealership ended up paying that salesman in that case. And so that directly correlates to real estate.
You know, I've never thought of it that way. I thought the seller always paid the compensation.
hmm Well, was there any other concerns about the compensation that you were specifically looking at?
Well, so now that you've shown that scenario, how are you compensated though? I know the same way, but tell me what your fee is.
Well, my broker charges 3% for my representation.
Well, don't stop there.
Oh,
He said how? He didn't say how much. How?
oh, well, my broker does the same thing. They write me a check.
Well, could I be responsible for paying any part of your fee?
Yeah, in fact, you're responsible for all of it.
Okay, well, now you probably want to get off that highway a little bit and say, well, actually, it's structured in the transaction. Notice I don't
Okay.
say deal. So it basically, when you
It'd be a
bought
part
the
of it.
car, it was all in there. When we structure the offer on the home, my fee will be baked into that. Does that make sense? Are you okay with that?
Yeah. Well, what does that look like? Do we know yet?
Well, have you found a house yet?
Yeah.
Not yet. No, we haven't.
So we can role play it or model it today if you want to, but have you bought a house before? We talked about a car. Have you bought a house before?
Yeah,
Was there an agent involved?
there was. Yeah.
Were you the buyer or yeah, you were a buyer, right?
Yeah, correct.
You wrote an offer on the house, negotiated a price, blah, blah, blah. But did you have to write a separate check for the commission?
I didn't know.
Because it was baked into the transaction.
Correct.
So if we can duplicate that procedure, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I believe so. But do I need to worry about any hidden costs or anything like that?
Well, now you're going down hidden costs. So
Oh, okay. Got it.
that's a role play on another channel.
Got it.
Is this making sense to you guys?
Yes, it
Yeah, I think
is.
that was a good role play.
What I want you to do is we want to get everyone to the point where you don't need the light on to go to sleep. There's nothing under the bed called a compensation boogeyman. We are going to take this head on. In fact, get this, you guys. They may not bring it up, but we have to. And so whenever they teach us in bold and a lot of other sales classes, if you get a concern or objection over and over again, what you want to do is you want to be the one that brings it up. But isn't there a strong contrast between us taking the offensive, particularly on Friday, we're going to build a value proposition around it, versus them like, oh, I hope they don't ask. I hope they don't ask. But we have to bring it up anyway. So that was pretty good, Mark. That was pretty good. Thanks for playing.
Okay.
Next.
I'm next. Where's Louise?
Louise.
You might
I
have
was
died.
talking to myself.
I'll be Louise.
I was talking to myself. I
Oh.
didn't realize it. Debbie, how are you compensated, and could I be responsible for any part of your fee?
Oh, that's an excellent question, Louise. Let me ask you, have you bought a home in the past?
Yes.
Okay. And who do you think paid the compensation then?
The seller paid the buyer fees.
Okay. And where do you think the seller actually got the money?
Well, we wrote a big fat check to the seller when we bought the house.
Okay. Of course you did. Actually, the buyer has always paid the compensation. And
Wait, stay with the story. Stay with the story. You got away from the story. I was getting
Okay.
into the story.
Okay.
So when you had that big fat check, you had to take in your Wildorf full of money,
Right.
finish it.
Okay. So when you had to write a big check at the closing table and you had a big bucket of money, who do you think paid the compensation?
I think I see where you're going. The seller paid everyone with that. They paid the agents, they paid the title company, they paid their mortgage lender, everything.
Yeah, and the seller, as far as the compensation, the buyer's agent got the money from the buyer.
Well,
That's the
no,
way it's
you're
always.
telling the story now. So in
Okay.
essence, you bought the money, they wrote the check, or they
Right.
wrote the check, but where did they get the money, Louise? From your wheelbarrow.
Right. I was
So
trying to
you got to put a
articulate
bow on
that.
it.
Yeah.
So who actually paid it?
Sounds like I did.
So, yeah, you actually did pay it, Louise, and it's no different now than it was in the last 10 years or 20 years. The buyer has always paid the compensation.
Okay, what's next? This is what Mark did well. Do you have any other questions on compensation?
Yeah, do you have any other questions
So Mark,
on
nice job when you
on
carried that on.
compensation?
No,
All
I
right,
don't.
next, we got time for another one. Thanks, Debbie, nice job.
Okay, I guess we'll wrap it up with Michelle and Don.
Michelle, thanks for asking or answering all those questions. The last one I've got is, how are you compensated, and could I be responsible for any part of your fee?
Well, Don, I'm glad you asked that. We were going to cover that. All compensation goes to the brokerage, and the brokerage determines where all fees go at that point, and that's how I'm compensated. Have you ever purchased a home before?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell me about that. How did you transfer any funds that were used to purchase the home?
Well, we wrote
Is
a,
that really the question you're asking? Well, I actually did a wire transfer. Is that what you want to know?
Okay. Well, when the attorney's office received funding for the house, did they go over some information with you on how your money was going to be distributed?
You're
No, it's
making a
too
simple
confusing.
project very confusing.
yeah. Where did the money
Okay.
come
Bought
from?
your last house.
Okay,
Did
when you bought
whoa,
when
whoa, 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 listen. when you bought your last house, did you pay any agents any money?
When you bought your last house, Don,
No, I'm role playing now. Just watch. Don?
No, I didn't.
Who paid them?
I guess the title company and their brokerages, I guess.
Okay, now Michelle, count my words. Where did they get the money?
From us.
So technically, who paid them?
I get it. So what you're saying is without us, there's no
See,
fee.
you are getting way too complicated with attorneys and distribution and fees and all that. Count the number of words. It's a simple story.
okay.
That makes sense?
Yes. I think
You wanna
I
try
had
it?
the questions
try it?
written right, but then I started.
It's okay, darling. You want to try it again?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, Don. Okay, Don, great question. And compensation usually goes straight to the brokerage and the
You don't
broker
even need,
pays.
why are
Yeah.
you even talking about that? That
Okay.
does not matter.
Where
All
did
right.
you get where did they get the money? Come on, Michelle. You can do this.
Okay, Don, when you went to purchase your home, did you bring any money with you?
Well, a big check, sure.
Yeah, and from that check, Don, do you remember writing a second check to any agents?
No, never.
Okay. Well, do you know how that money was distributed?
No.
You're getting technical again.
That's-
Well, who paid the agents?
Where'd it come
Who-
from?
Well, who paid the agents, Don?
I guess the companies did.
And where did they get that money from?
Oh, yes.
Oh, that's a good question. So glad you asked. I guess from me.
You're exactly right, Don.
Thank you, Michelle. Good job. Now, before you guys go ahead. You can don't just keep it running. Share. Give a lot of people that watch us on recorded on my YouTube channel. There's a Facebook Live watching. Why don't you guys? They can't share, but you guys can. Be willing to share what you heard today that will help you moving forward with this conversation.
Just answer it directly. Don't beat around the bush.
Yeah,
Okay. What else, you
that's
guys?
so what I've learned here, since I should have raised hand. Here it is. Yeah, to get to be more direct and have shortened questions, that actually sometimes brings more clarity and not rambling about for hours. Like, yeah,
Hey, Denny, when you're short,
I am better.
when you're short and you're on the offensive to the buyer, it's like, oh, they get asked this all the time. They've done this a million times. Short and take offense.
Right. One more.
Yes.
I appreciate it in the chat too. Make it simple, straightforward. The only
Simple,
one who brings
straightforward.
cash, closing cable is the one that gets paid out of those funds. Right. So, right. Helps me think from a different perspective. One of the things, and I heard you do this, I think, Michelle, I think you did it on yours. I could be wrong. Maybe it was Debbie. You know, that's a great question. I was going to cover that. That really disarms them, and just the advanced version of that, particularly if you're going through the gauntlet with these questions. And I get asked that question. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm glad you asked. We're going to cover that. However, I'd like to table that for now. What other questions do you have for me? And I'm going to come back to that. Does that make sense? Because sometimes you want to control. No one's going to have 50 questions for you. And so you want to be able to control. And, you know, unless they're sitting there with what looks like a spreadsheet. I tell you what, that's a great question. We're going to cover that. What are the questions you have? And I'll just answer them as we go. If you have that opportunity where they can, you know, they have a finite number of questions, that would be what Jose would do if he had the time to do it. He would just, clarify and isolate until all the groceries are put away. Does that make sense? So we'll see you guys tomorrow. What we're going to be talking about tomorrow, question number 3, the buyer is going to ask you, what risks do you see buyers overlooking in this market? Again, I don't know that I've ever thought about that question. I mean, there may be some things as I dig into it. That's why we're going to build a value proposition around these types of questions. So love you, mean it, knuckle bump. Thanks, team, for helping out. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Ooh,
Tomorrow.
bless.